Stomach problems, a bad gut, multiple toilet stops. It's ubiquitous in post-race discussions in all triathlons, at all levels. It seems as if every second competitor has some or other stomach or nutrition complaint. So what is going on? Are we close to solving the tummy trouble in endurance sport? Or is it getting more prevalent? And what is causing it? Today we take a closer look at race nutrition and specifically how intolerances might be the cause of your stomach issues and what you can do about it. Of course, long-distance triathlon is asking a lot of your body and, by extension, of your GI tract. You're asking it to do something extraordinary. So, of course, sometimes it might fail. But you'd think that after decades of human performance, we'd have it all figured out by now. But it seems, despite massive leaps in endurance fueling science and a far better understanding of what is going on inside our bodies whilst racing, issues with the stomach are not going away. In fact, they may be getting more common, not less common. The fact is, many people, including you, may be race nutrition intolerant. Food intolerance is seemingly more and more common these days. Dairy intolerance, gluten intolerance, certain protein intolerances. And some of these foods that people are intolerant of appear in race nutrition. So let's dive into this world and help you identify possible causes of your bad stomach so you can check labels and experiment with eliminating them from your diet, or at the very least from your race nutrition. It's important to distinguish here the difference between allergies to food and intolerance to food. An allergy, such as a peanut allergy, triggers an immune response. This can lead to feeling dizzy, lightheaded, a rash, swelling, coughing, wheezing, feeling sick, tummy pain, and diarrhea. An intolerance is simply your body being unable to adequately digest or otherwise deal with a substance. This can lead to discomfort, diarrhea, gas, bloating, and cramps. We're all familiar with the common intolerances. Gluten, lactose, and milk protein intolerances are fairly common. And these days, it's actually not too difficult to remove these from your diet. Not easy, mind you, but there are more and more readily available alternatives, like oat milk, gluten-free pasta, and lactose-free milk. But it's important to be aware that intolerance is not a binary state. You aren't gluten intolerant or not. You can be completely tolerant, or severely intolerant, or somewhere in between. And this is where you kind of need to know your position, because a minor intolerance coupled with the low blood flow in your GI tract and slow gastric emptying during a triathlon can turn a minor intolerance into a major issue. You could be fine every day consuming dairy or wheat or milk, and then on race day, it absolutely cripples you. If you suspect you may have a minor intolerance, experiment with eliminating it from your diet and carefully monitor the results. And this is relevant to me. You see, in the past, I had an issue with a sugar alcohol called isomaltulose. It was the primary ingredient in one of my nutrition sponsors' energy drinks, and it caused me significant issues: cramping, bloating, and general discomfort. It was pretty detrimental to my performance. Luckily, that particular ingredient is fairly easily avoided. But recently I had similar symptoms, and it turns out that one of the electrolyte drinks that I was using contained sorbitol. Sorbitol is a type of carbohydrate called a sugar alcohol or polyol. Sorbitol contains about 1/3 fewer calories than sugar and is about 60% as sweet. Sorbitol occurs naturally in a variety of berries and fruits, and for that reason many nutrition companies use it in their products. Now, for the majority of people, sorbitol is absolutely fine, but I suspect I may have an intolerance to it. So, I did an experiment, controlling as many variables as possible and monitoring the results. I found similar electrolyte drinks, actually identical from the same company, one with sorbitol and the other without. And so I tested my tolerance. I ate the same carefully controlled diet for 4 days in a row. The first day was just a control day to get the baseline with the controlled diet. The second day, I ate the same things and I drank 4 bottles of the electrolyte drink with no sorbitol in it. The third day, I drank only water, eating the same diet, a control day to see the longer lasting effects and also to get back to baseline. And then the fourth day, I drank 4 bottles of the electrolyte drink with sorbitol. And I monitored my symptoms on each day, recording any gas, bloating, cramping, and of course, my subjective feelings. It turns out that I do have an intolerance to sorbitol. Probably also to other sugar alcohols. Actually, I'm fairly sure I do because of my previous issues with isomaltulose, with similar results to this test: gas, bloating, and stomach cramps. For me, this is good to know and actually not too hard to deal with. But it begs the question. Surely nutrition companies would be aware of these things and remove them from their products to prevent race-ruining issues. The reality is, there are a few substances which are very useful to include in supplements and have zero effect on the majority of athletes, or even a positive effect, but they might be the very thing that is sidelining you, much like me. These substances are collectively known as FODMAPs, which is a fairly clumsy acronym for fermentable oligosaccharides, disaccharides, monosaccharides, and polyols, which is basically scientists speak for carbs that cause gas in the gut. In the small intestine, FODMAPs attract water from the intestinal wall, which may result in loose stools and diarrhea. And in the large intestine, normal colonic bacteria break down FODMAPs into gases, which cause the bloating and flatulence. But many of these carbs are great sources of energy whilst exercising. Some are slower release sugars, which help keep your blood sugar regular and avoid spikes during endurance events, which is a great thing. And so their inclusion in exercise fuel is not only accepted, it's often promoted. And as a bonus, they often provide the same energy with a much less sweet taste, making them more palatable as endurance fuels because after a few hours of sweet drinks, no one wants more sugar. The percentage of the population that is affected by FODMAPs causing gastrointestinal distress is low enough that nutrition companies include these in their products anyway. And so if you, like me, are affected by certain FODMAPs, the onus is unfortunately on you to identify which ones affect you and then read the nutrition labels and avoid any sports nutrition that can affect you and avoid the culprit. Unfortunately, here's the bad news. The only way to know for sure if your stomach issues are related to one or more ingredients in your sport nutrition or in your diet leading up to the race is by elimination testing. Much like what I did. That of course means cutting out one ingredient and seeing if it makes any difference, and then trying another ingredient, and so on. Now I could tell my results in just my normal day-to-day activities, but an obvious difficulty with this is that you can only really know if this is going to affect you in a race environment by doing the testing in a race environment, where you go for several hours at a high intensity whilst you eat and drink only race fuels on a gut with reduced blood flow. Now, whilst you can simulate this in training, and of course we'd suggest you do go to the trouble to attempt to do so, it is usually incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to simulate the duration, the fueling, and the intensity of a race until the actual race itself. At which point, if the elimination didn't work, it's another race ruined and back to the drawing board. It can be a long and frustrating process. You can, of course, approach it the other way around. Simply keep your diet in the days leading up to the race, and your race nutrition itself, as simple and controlled as possible. Eating and drinking only those foods that you know for certain that you have no reaction to. Regardless of which way you tackle the problem, if you experience performance-damaging gut issues, then it is worth your time. Read up on FODMAPs, do your elimination testing for intolerances to other foods like gluten and lactose, and start the journey to trouble-free race nutrition. It can be a journey, as I can attest to, but it is worth it when you cross the finish line and have no GI issues whatsoever for your entire race. Before I go, it's worth pointing out that your nutrition issue may not be intolerance related at all. Pre-race nerves can cause queasiness and nausea. The wrong pre-race meal, which just doesn't digest well, can also affect you, even late in a long race. Try sticking to your own food that you're used to, even taking it with you when you're traveling to a race. Overeating or overdrinking during the event can also affect your stomach and cause you discomfort, which can affect your performance. So have a nutrition plan, practice it to make sure it works, and then stick to it on race day. even the best stomach in the world can't handle a barrage of gels and bars and energy drinks whilst exercising at a high intensity. Well, let us know if you have experienced issues, and more importantly, if you have solved it. And was it food related or some other source of the problem? And if you haven't solved it yet, I certainly hope today we have given you some information to help you figure it out. Good luck with the process and happy racing.